everybody, it's Andrew Field here, and there's a lot of foreign affairs to cover, so let's get started. Starting in Hong Kong, 19 people were arrested and 300 people were questioned in protests. Um, Hong Kong's leaders still wanted to pass the extraction bill after the protests, despite the record protests of a million or so people. Um, that they said a million or so people protested this extraction bill, and China blocked coverage of the Hong Kong protests. Some officials say the U.S. was responsible for the protests. China was trying to blame the U.S., even though it was from Hong Kong. U.S. spokesman called the claim absurd. More protests are planned for Wednesday, and Europe and U.S. are critical of the bill. And Hong Kong eventually suspended the extraction bill after the protests. So the extraction bill was that people that were prosecuted could be brought to China, and people were thinking correctly that if they were brought to China, that they wouldn't get a fair trial because it's a communist nation, and they would be um, probably tortured or sent in jail for like the rest of their lives, never to be seen again. Um, so thankfully those protests work, and Hong Kong right now is a sign of freedom, and hopefully the U.S. and the world will stick with that and protect Hong Kong and their interests. China warns students against studying in the U.S. Sudan's dictator Omar al-Bashir stepped down after 30 years. The Sudan people wanted a peaceful transition and civilian rule, but the military decided otherwise, going to demonstrators and killing 118, injuring over 700, and there have been 70 cases of rape. The internet's on lockdown because they don't want the media and the world to see what's going on. The U.S. sends Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs Tibor P. Nagy to meet with Sudan leaders. The Transitional Military Council agreed to resume talks for transitional government ahead of elections. Many criticize the media for not covering Sudan enough because even though the internet's down, it doesn't seem like the media is talking about it as that big of an issue. It seems like they're going to other things, and I think that this is something that's very important and something that needs to be talked about and brought up. So hopefully this massacre will end. But thankfully, people like Rihanna and Ariana Grande are speaking out on Sudan, and Demi Lovato is following a social media movement for making your Facebook or Instagram or whatever social media page you have blue for Sudan. The world seems to be protesting for Sudan's behalf, and I think that's a great thing. And I've been doing that as well because um, we can't let things like this go through, and we need to try to stop this before it gets worse, because this is just them wanting to lead themselves and not have the military lead in an autocratic way. North Korea says for the U.S. to withdraw its hostile policy, says agreements made in Singapore may not come true. They're threatening. South Korean president says talks were underway for a third summit. Trump last week said he was looking forward to meeting Kim. Trump and the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, will attend G20 in Japan this month. They're going to go back to Japan. We'll visit South Korea, President Moon, and we'll try to get North Korea to denuclearize. We'll see how that process goes. The State Department, Trump administration blames Iran for oil attacks on a Norwegian and Japanese vessels going through the Gulf of Oman. The USS Bainbridge was dispatched to help the damaged vessels. Japanese tanker owner contradicts U.S. officials over the explosions used in the Gulf of Oman attack. He described something coming at the ship where U.S. intelligence thought it was mines that exploded. A declassified U.S. video of Iranian boats taking a mine that did not explode off the ship, saying that's their proof. The attack sent up oil prices by 1%, and ship insurance for the Middle East and like specifically the Gulf of Oman up 10%. Iran flew a missile on American drone, and this all escalated tensions, of course, between U.S. and Iran. And on the other hand, though, Germany's foreign minister and Norway say the video is not enough to blame Iran. Their distrust of America coming from the U.S. backing out of the Iran nuclear deal, or I should just say Trump backing out of the Iran nuclear deal, thinking America wants a fight. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for an investigation into the oil tax, and he says the world cannot have a confrontation in the Gulf region. Japan, who was once a big buyer of Iranian oil, stopped after U.S. sanctions. Japanese Prime Minister Abe came to Tehran in peace with a message from Trump. Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei dismissed Trump's private message. Trump and Abe talked about the oil tax on the phone. Japanese Foreign Ministry condemned the attack, vowed to work with friendly nations, and did not mention Iran. The Gulf of Mexico could see its second largest dead zone in the summer of Louisiana and Texas, the size of New Jersey. The dead zone is an area in the ocean with low oxygen that can't support life. And I saw an article that was saying that a big reason for that was pollution in Chicago. So it just shows like how big of an effect pollution can have. So now there's going to be this area in Louisiana, Texas that is not going to have enough oxygen. So there's going to be no life in that area, and it's going to be the size of New Jersey. So it's a big deal. Um, 3 were charged with animal cruelty after a video released showing the workers kicking and throwing calves, which are baby cows. A nationwide protest of Coca-Cola for the association of Fair Oaks farms went underway. A UK farm is worried of the reputation by having the same name as Fair Oaks Farms. That's really horrible luck. 9 states and the District of Columbia filed suit to block the T-Mobile Sprint merger. E3 just happened, and they released a lot for the new games, like Keanu Reeves being in a game, and Avengers is coming out as its own video game. Seemed pretty good. Radiohead released 18 hours of unreleased music held ransom by hackers. Walmart is launching a service to bring groceries not only to your door, but it's supposed to put them in the kitchen of your home. Seems a little off, you know? Doesn't seem good, like, with privacy. And they said, oh, it has to be an employee that was working at Walmart for at least a year, but it doesn't mean you want them, inside your house. It's kind of a weird thing. I mean, to your door makes sense, but yeah, it doesn't make sense past that to me. The Toronto Raptors and St. Louis Blues are the champions. The Toronto Raptors beat the Golden State in Game 6, and in a very close game, and now they win. They're the NBA champions. And with NHL, the St. Louis Blues beat Boston 3-0 in Game 7 to take home the Stanley Cup for the first time in their history. And I'm a Blackhawks fan, but I don't really have too much against the Blues, so good job to both teams. Thousands of acres of farms are flooded, and historic rains are bringing Illinois to its slowest planting season. Food production accounts for one quarter of carbon emissions. Choosing chicken over beef would be much better for the planet. New York kind of relapsed when a helicopter crashed into a building in Times Square, but thankfully no major damage was done. Only the pilot was killed. Vice President Pence traveled to Oklahoma, pledging to rebuild damage done by floods. But he also said a disturbing thing that makes it seem like he would be not that good of a president either. He's very anti-LGBTQ community, and during Pride Month, U.S. embassies were flying their rainbow-colored flag, and he said that banning pride flags at U.S. embassies is the right thing to do. So, it's kind of disgusting. Mexico's foreign minister contradicts Trump, saying no secret immigration deal exists. Trump met with Polish president for a defense deal. U.S. Customs and Border Protection say photos of travelers were taken in a breach. Illinois and Nevada passed laws protecting abortion. The Justice Department handed over key Mueller evidence to the House. GOP senators, even Lindsey Graham, distanced themselves from Trump after he says he would get dirt on a political opponent by a foreign government. So not only do we have evidence that he did take evidence of a political opponent from Russia, but he said that he'd do it again. And he clearly didn't get it when the reporter was asking him like multiple different questions about it. He still was saying that throughout the entire time. And then tweeted his support of his opinion too. Trump ended up knowing that he screwed up. The U.S. Office of Special Counsel says that Kellyanne Conway should be removed for breaking the Hatch Act, talking bad of Trump's political opponents. I think it was Joe Biden. Trump announces that Sarah Sanders is leaving on Twitter. It wasn't like a bad removal though. It was pretty peaceful. But then he had to be really stupid, and he said she should run as the governor of Arkansas. I mean, her father was a governor of Arkansas, and she does have a bit of government experience, but I don't want to see her be a governor of Arkansas. But you know what? That's for you guys to decide in Arkansas. I don't know if she'd be a good candidate, but I guess we'll see. She didn't say if she was running or not, but she said she didn't rule it out either. Republican Susan Brooks was one of the few Republican women in the House who recruited many to the party, announced her retirement. Trump declined to give Pence his endorsement for a 2024 presidential run. Trump admits that, I already said that, but it's a really big deal that he said that. He said that on ABC on national television that he would take dirt from a political opponent. So, I mean, that's collusion live. If you need any more evidence, just watch the clip. So polls were coming out. Warren seemed to be gaining momentum. Warren and Pete Buttigieg are rising in Iowa, where Biden and Sanders are falling, because Warren seems to be taking from Sanders' base. Biden seems to take Iowa for Democrats. Sanders will have a tougher run from Democrats in 2020. Biden and Trump campaign in Iowa and trade insults. Biden is said to be leading Trump by 13 percentage points. Sanders is up 9%. Harris is up 8%. Warren is up 7%. Buttigieg and Booker up 5%. Now, it was weird to see that, Beto wasn't in there. He doesn't seem to be too much of a prominent candidate yet, even though he is a presidential candidate officially. But that's crazy that not only Biden, but 5 other Democratic opponents of Trump, Harris, Sanders, Buttigieg, Booker, the 6 were Biden, Sanders, Harris, Warren, Buttigieg, and Booker, that were all leading Trump in this poll. Now, politicians were skeptical on the polls after they were wrong about Clinton. Trump claims the polls were fake and made by fake media, and he says he's winning every state he's polled, and I think it's definitely false. But some pollsters were saying that these big leads, and even states he's won, like maybe even Texas, he might lose. So it's something to look for, and it's really early in this process, but it's still believable. I think. I think that they should take that as confidence to move on and beat him. The first Democratic presidential debates start on June 26th and the 27th, and the that was the dates, the 26th and the 27th, but the times got released of when all the candidates are going to talk and everything. So that's coming up, and that just shows how close we are to the 2020 elections. Thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, guys.